And in question time today, opposition leader Angus Taylor asked the Prime Minister about the current fuel supply crisis.
Can the Prime Minister inform the House where there are fuel supply shortages in Australia?
The big message for every Australian is don't panic. The suppliers are there. We all have a role to play in that. Stick to our normal daily operations and schedules and don't think that we have to always keep topping up.
And the opposition leader Angus Taylor joins me now. Thank you so much for your time. Do you think we are already in a fuel crisis here in Australia?
Well, thanks for having me, Sharri. What's very clear is that there's a lot of customers out there, farmers, truckers, distributors, who can't get access to the fuel they need. There's no doubt about that. And yet Albanese and Bowen and others are consistently telling us there's no problem. Well, there is a problem. We've got people right across this country telling us they can't get access to that fuel that they need, and the government is in complete denial about that. They keep telling us it's absolutely as it normally is. There's more than enough stock to go around, except somehow, for some bizarre reason, people can't seem to get hold of it. There is a problem, and the government needs to get on top of it.
So what should the Albanese government be doing, in your view, to secure more supply?
Well, let's be clear. If the stocks are as they say, then the problem is the stocks aren't getting to the customers. And that's a tough discussion you have to have with suppliers. I had that discussion when I was Energy Minister during COVID, and they'll respond to that. But you've got to make sure that the fuel is getting to customers. Now, their answer to this is it's the customer's fault. The customers are buying too much. I mean, this is just absolute nonsense, Sharri. They don't understand what's going on. They're not on top of it. They don't understand there's supply shortages. We're hearing it from our constituents and from Australians every day right now, and the government needs to get on top of it, take control of it and make sure the supply is getting to customers.
Chris Bowen and the Prime Minister say that there is panic buying going on. If this is the case, if this is causing the problem, do you think there needs to be petrol limits or rationing in city areas?
Well, you know, the extraordinary thing about this government is it's always someone else's fault. This time it's the customer's fault. The customers are at fault, and they're the reason why they can't buy fuel. I mean, this is nonsense, Sharri. And what the government needs to do is sit down with the suppliers and make sure the supply is getting to the customers. If, as they say, the stocks are high enough, and they keep saying this, then they've got to get the fuel there, and that's a discussion you can have with the suppliers. They have access to very detailed stock data as to where the stocks are right through the supply chain. That's a regime we set up when we were in government. They're not giving any transparency to that, but they should be able to make sure, with pressure on the suppliers, that the fuel is getting to customers.
What about looking at alternate sources of fuel, perhaps from the United States, which has its own domestic supply, or even from India from Russia via India?
Well, I mean, the alternatives are being proposed. Chris Bowen told us last week all of this is a good reason to buy an electric vehicle. But if you live in a country area, that's just a nonsensical suggestion as a solution to the problem. But this is just the way this government thinks. As I say, if the stocks are there as they keep claiming, then the matter is all about getting those stocks to the customers. If there is indeed a problem with fuel coming to Australia, yes, we should be looking at alternatives.
The Prime Minister today said that he would be supplying some defensive weapons to the United Arab Emirates, but he was at pains to point out that he wasn't helping the United States or Israel and that there were no offensive attacks on Iran. What did you think of his kind of timid language? And would you have a different position if you were leader?
Oh, I think it's pathetic. I think it's pathetic. They couldn't come to congratulate the submariners, the Australian submariners who were on US vessels that were attacking, rightly, Iranian ships. They can't come to say that Israel and the United States deserve support in the attacks they've been making on Iran. And this is the complete moral ambiguity, the lack of moral clarity, phrase you used a moment ago, quite rightly, Sharri, of this Prime Minister. It is clear what is right and wrong here. This is a rotten, despotic regime in Iran. It oppresses its own people. It's responsible for genocide. It's been responsible for terrorist attacks in our country. In our country. The Adass synagogue, as you know well, was the most notable of those. And they should be condemned, and we should support our friends and allies from the United States in Israel in their attacks. And we don't need this kind of defensive language. We obviously do support the Wedgetails and the AMRAAM missiles going over to the UAE. I think I strongly support that move. But you've got to go shoulder to shoulder with our allies on this one.
Well, shoulder to shoulder, does that mean that if you were Prime Minister, you'd be offering to send more military equipment to be involved in offensive attacks?
Well, we haven't received we're not aware of any proposal along those lines, but I have to say that we shouldn't be closed-minded about it, Sharri. We want this to succeed. We want these actions by the United States and Israel to hand back Iran to the Iranian people so that they can have control over their own destiny rather than be controlled by this regime. So that's our starting point, and we'd be very open to proposals along the lines of what you just suggested.
Just very quick answers on a couple of other points. President Trump phoned the Prime Minister overnight about the Iranian soccer team. Do you think the Albanese government was a bit slow to act? Would you like to make sure that help is extended to the other players?
Well, we strongly support asylum being offered to the players. You can only offer it at the end of the day, but it should be, and there shouldn't be any kind of oppression of those players by management. There's questions about how some of the management, whether they had appropriate clearances, but putting that aside for a moment, I think offering asylum is incredibly important. We support the actions that have been taken. I'm not so sure about the photography. I doubt Tony Burke will be getting photographs with the ISIS brides if they come to Australia.
Well, you never know. He has turned up to Sydney Airport when there have been arrivals from Gaza, so he doesn't miss a photo opportunity. Just finally, very quickly, Nationals leader David Littleproud has, of course, announced his resignation. Did he tell you he was going to resign, or were you blindsided?
No, he gave me warning in advance, and
how much?
I thank him for the role he's played, an important role. Well, a little bit. I'm not going to go into private conversations, Sharri, but he did give me warning. But I think David has led the National Party through a difficult time coming out of the election loss in 2022, and I thank him for that service. He'll continue to serve in the Parliament. He has been important person to work with for me in re-establishing the coalition. And we needed to get that back onto a good footing, and we've done that.
Right, Angus Taylor, really appreciate your time this evening. Thank you.